India has been the largest or the second largest country in terms of its digital adoption in the last 5 to 7 years. It was just second to Indonesia, but in terms of the absolute number of digital adoption is the highest.
When we look at this whole concept of how do we create a $1 trillion digital economy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been given the responsibility of managing an immediately post-lunch session, and I've been advised to keep it very dynamic to ensure, yes, so to get this interactive. So what I'll try to do is we will start with Sunil, and we will keep some time for some interaction with the crowd here. If you have any specific questions that you want either me or Sunil to answer, we will be happy to do that for you. The theme of today is mobile device ecosystem driving the trillion-dollar digital economy. Now, we all know today, especially in today's world, in India, mobile devices, how important they are to everybody, right? And in our day-to-day lives. They are also very, very important in terms of driving the digital adoption quotient of the country. India has been the largest or the second largest country in terms of its digital adoption in the last 5 to 7 years. It was just second to Indonesia, but in terms of the absolute number of digital adoption is the highest. Mobile devices have been spearheading the entire digital adoption. It's not only for us to all use it for entertainment, it's also used a lot for business to businesses dealing. It's used for a lot for government to consumer initiatives. So G2C, B2B, B2C, and many of those use cases. India is the second largest mobile device manufacturing country in the world today, just second to China. Right? And it has overtaken Vietnam a few years back. To put things in context, government's national policy of electronics, which got released in 2019, targets mobile device manufacturing to generate revenue of $190 billion, of which around 110 billion will be coming from exports and 80 billion coming from domestic growth. Today, we will be close to 300 million odd mobile handsets being shipped and sold in India, which creates an opportunity of close to $30 billion. Another set of some exports, so it's close to $40 billion. So from 30 billion, and it is approximate number just to give you a sense of the scale. So from 30 billion, the target is to move to 70 to 80 billion in terms of domestic mobile handset manufacturing, and from almost 10 billion to move to 100 billion, 110 billion exports. So that's really a huge growth opportunity, and a lot of drivers will come into play to drive that growth. We have seen countries like China and others which have really done it successfully in the past 2 decades. So it will not be very wrong to say that if India has to be pushed and to move to an aspiration of $1 trillion digital opportunity in the next 4 to 5 years, mobile devices will continue to be at the core and will probably be the spearheading the entire revolution. I am joined in by Sunil today. He's president from Lava International, heads the overall business at Lava. So we will get into this. Sunil, it will be good before we get into specific elements of mobile manufacturing, 5G, IoT, smartification, and those themes. If you could share in this journey for reaching where India is today, right? And mobile devices, I think, would be the largest in terms of the manufacturing ecosystem that India has successfully established. We are still far behind in electronics, in semiconductors, in ESD, and mobile has been far ahead. There is a lot of role played by government through schemes, incentives, a lot of role played by the domestic manufacturers, right, and consumers. So what has been the role these players have played, and what do you think going forward is the role, more importantly, that the government and the industry needs to play to be able to reach to that mission or that vision of $1 trillion opportunity?
Sure. No, thank you for having me here today. So I think in terms of the opportunity that we have today in India, it's a bus that we cannot afford to miss. It's very clear because this opportunity is a once in a lifetime opportunity for the country. Because if you look at the geopolitical factors, what is happening to China with respect to its relationship with the rest of the world, that's one aspect which definitely is coming into play. Then there is other thing wherein because China's GDP has grown 5 times that of India. It's 5 times that of India. So therefore, if you see the labor costs, etc., are far higher than what you get in India. And the third factor is the infrastructure. So in terms of infrastructure, today India is building global infrastructure, whether it is roads, whether it's ports, whether it's airports. I think all of it is coming together extremely well. Now, when we look at this whole concept of how do we create a trillion-dollar digital economy, how do we create a manufacturing hub out of India? So I think all of these things are just, I would say, tip of the iceberg, because the task at hand is pretty large. It's very big. We're practically talking about creating an entire ecosystem in India, which would start from lower end jobs like doing manufacturing, which is just, I would say, it's a very small part of the entire ecosystem creation. There are 3 key components to building an ecosystem. One is you have supply chain. The supply chain is extremely important when it comes to the ecosystem creation. Second is the design, which is the R&D aspect of it. And third is, of course, the manufacturing. Let me give you an example of where we stand in terms of our design capability today as a country, and compared to what happened in China. Say about 10 years back, US used to file about 6 lakh patents in technology. And China used to be about 60,000, if I get the numbers right. Now today, China has almost crossed US in terms of filing patents. So that's the level of capability that they have built over the last couple of decades. And the number in India is just about 30,000 patents that we are filing in a year. So this delta in design and creating IPs is still to be bridged. We have not even gotten there in terms of the distance that we have to travel. But what is an immediate opportunity for us is creating a large manufacturing hub out of India, because that's a starting point for building the entire ecosystem. If you see what happened in China 2 decades back, they were all in doing this low-end manufacturing job, and slowly today they've got to this patent creation, which is almost equal to what US is doing now. Now, this is a story that every rich country has gone through. Before China, this entire ecosystem was in Taiwan, and Taiwan became a rich country in the span of 1 decade. Before that, this ecosystem was in Korea. Korea became a rich country in the span of decade and a half. Before that, it was in Japan, then before it was Europe, US, all of that. So when I say that this is an opportunity that we cannot miss, if we have to grow the GDP of this country, have to realize the dream of $5 trillion economy that we all wish to create, and create so many jobs for people, because India has got what we call them PhD, poor, hungry, and desirous people, and we're very young population. Our median age is about 26 years. So to really provide employment to these people and create a $5 trillion economy is a big task at hand. But I think what has happened right now is that government has realized that this is a great opportunity. Therefore, if you see incentivization in terms of PLI schemes, incentivization that the state governments are doing, and also a huge focus on exports, because without exports, you cannot really create a huge scale, because scale is very important for creating economic change, so to say. But I think all these factors are today coming together extremely well, and industry on its own is trying to get more and more people into the country, make sure that more and more components are manufactured in India right now. I think this story of manufacturing will go on for about 5 years and then has to move on to the higher end of ecosystem creation. So that's what I would say as a starting comment.
Thanks, Sunil. And rightly so, I think it goes, the $1 trillion opportunity and the $1 trillion vision really goes beyond just manufacturing to be able to achieve. Uh, to share with you on this, METI had come up with a document which enlisted 9 themes to drive the $1 trillion opportunity. The themes were, to give you an example of some of the themes: healthcare for all, e-healthcare, digital payments, e-agriculture, quality education for all, energy stability and enough energy supply, doubling the farmer's income. So these were some 8-9 themes around which they've identified 30 initiatives. Now look, even something as simple and basic as doubling farmer's income, we have been talking about it for so long. What is the mobile, the natural question is, what is mobile got to do with it, right? But if you look at the sub-initiatives there, initiatives around ensuring the insurance in case of any damage to the farmer's crops happening, the insurance payout becomes automatic. It can actually get insurance. They can get insurance on their mobile phone through an application. They can, if there is a problem with their crop, they can apply for the insurance and the money comes through the Jan Dhan account into their bank, right? So they don't have to really go out to claim that. Talking themes around agriculture, using sensors and all, driving predictive agriculture inputs on basis the soil, basis the weather, those things, tips going to the farmer on how they can, what they can sow at a particular time of the year, how they can improve the productivity of their of what they are sowing through the through mobile as an interface. So those are certain examples. So which goes beyond just manufacturing, right? Manufacturing services and others will drive. But on the manufacturing part, Sunil, next question. We have been hearing a lot about China getting disadvantaged now with the labor prices rising, the labor arbitrage which they used to have, China, Vietnam is no more there because a lot of rising costs there. Lava has been in this business for many years and you have been manufacturing in India for so long. How have you seen that coming, with respect to cost competitiveness India mobile manufacturing vis-a-vis, let's say, China or Vietnam?
I think if you see, if I have to do a direct comparison with the labor cost per se with respect to China, we're about half of it or maybe 1/3 of it in terms of the labor cost. So that's a clear advantage that India has. Although the incentivization that China government does is far, far bigger, because they, of course, are also trying their best not to allow this ecosystem to shift out of China. They're also putting in their incentive programs. But having said that, I think this is a practically a lost battle for them, because all the forces, they have a clear headwind in terms of trying to stop it. But what they have done very smartly is they have moved on to the higher end of technology. They have moved on to doing, now for example, they are looking at building memories, making memory, making chipsets. So those are the things which are the higher end of the technology, which is something that they are now focusing on. Therefore, in a way, they'll be okay to leave this bottom end of manufacturing to other countries, so to say, in India in this case. But the higher end is something that they are building very strongly over there. But we get an advantage of labor cost. And in fact, there are so many incentives that government of India is giving today. We are competitive in terms of manufacturing, clearly.
So is that, and again a little debatable question here, so is that the real opportunity for India, which is the lower end of the value chain, rather than everybody trying to focus on building semiconductors and building display fabs and all, which needs a lot of investment, right? The ROI is long term, return on capital employed is slower, and other companies are doing. So there's always a question on, should India focus more around high technology, high complexity, low job creation part of the value chain, right? Or maybe relatively low technology, high return on capital employed, high labor intensive, high employment, which may be lower part of the value chain. So where is the sweet spot for India going forward if we want to go back into the value chain?
So I think it's not just a question of how, whether you can do either or. It's not an either or situation. You have to do both, practically speaking. Now, it is easier to start from the lower end of the manufacturing, so to say, pyramid. But what's going to happen? See, what do we lack today? We lack skills as a country. We don't have skills. So this lower end manufacturing is going to help us build skills. Because for a large country which has got so many young people available for deployment, we don't have skills. So therefore, to directly jump into the higher end of skills is going to take time. So when we start at the lower end, then gradually we'll get there. But having said that, I can see that Government of India is having a two-pronged strategy to deal with this. In fact, a lot of companies are also being encouraged to set up the semiconductor the fabs, etc. All of work is happening on that side also, because we know that we are already late in this whole journey. So it can't be a serial order process. It has to be a parallel track that one has to really work on. So yeah, I think this is easier to start, faster to start, gives you a head start, and then other things will get added along the way.
Perfect. No, and I can vouch for it because as part of KPMG, and I'm a partner with the firm KPMG in India, we are also advising some of our clients in setting up semiconductor and display fabs in the country. We've been working with them even before the government announced the PLI, and there is a clear production-linked incentive schemes focused on semiconductors. So that's something which will boost at least some initial companies to come and set up. Each of the plant for semiconductors or for display fabs requires huge investments and minimum volumes to be able to cater, to be able to run the plant. So work is happening on that front, and it should see the light of the day soon. Moving on to 5G, Sunil. Now, of course, with so much of focus happening, and it's almost very close in the near future. 5G is going to come. We will need 5G handsets, and not only for India, but clearly for the world. Because for handsets, we are far beyond make in India. We were make in India maybe 5 years back, then make for India, and now make for the world, right? So India is already at that stage. So what are the developments on the 5G side, especially on the 5G handset manufacturing, which companies like Lava and others industry is doing today? And are those something which will really take us to the global scale of 5G handset manufacturing, or global needs a different kind of R&D effort and development and design vis-a-vis India?
Yeah, so I think the only complexity in 5G is that there are multiple bands that you really take care of across the globe, right? So that's one complexity, one that we will have to really deal with. But having said that, it's a natural progression of how technology is going to evolve over time. In fact, while we are talking 5G, so Indian government is talking about 6G. So it's like that. It's like the one G is coming faster than the other G, the previous G. So that's how the Gs are moving. But having said that, it is very important for a country, like, in fact, coming back to the point on the digital economy part of it. Look what each of Gs have done to this country. When it was just 2G, we could just talk to each other. Like, that was a big thing. And 3G just gave us basic access to internet. You could just access internet. That's all you could do. But look at what 4G has done. 4G, in fact, I would say a lot of credit to all of these startups which have sprung in the last few years. A lot of credit goes to 4G technology. Because all these applications actually became the reason why people looked at newer and innovative ways of doing things, which didn't exist before. And that's a huge, huge transformation that has taken place. Now, from 4G to 5G or 6G for that matter, now we are talking about faster speeds, we are talking about low latency. So these are the key, I would say, benefits that you would get. And these two factors are going to really accelerate this whole digital economy, the digital economy agenda that this whole world has. But look at what is happening to India. While we are moving from 4G to 5G to 6G, you still have roughly about 350 million people who are still using a 2G phone. Now, the challenge that India has, how do you make these 350 million people get access to the kind of internet that you and I have? That's the biggest challenge that we have as a country. And globally also, I would say the African countries and some of the slightly lower end of, bottom of the pyramid countries, they also have the same challenge. Now, we as a country can become, I would say, the torchbearers for this segment, because we have a very large population of our own to address. And if you see how device manufacturers are working across the globe, there are very few people, very few companies which are focused on this segment. Most of the people, most of the companies are focused on the higher end of the segment. Like, I would say in motorbikes, we are global leaders, right? In generic drugs, we are global leaders. The reason is that because we have a very large market of our own. When we start innovating there, the population across the globe just laps it up. We are talking about bottom of the pyramid population of 4 billion people on this planet. They fall under bottom of the pyramid segment out of say 7.5, 8 billion people that live on this planet. We talk about 50% of the population in the world who needs this access. So what India can do, India can be the champion for building solutions for this particular segment. And it's a huge opportunity. And if we can do that in India, replicate elsewhere in the world, I think we're looking at a very huge, not just Indian domestic catering, but also a lot of exports that can take place from India.
So where do you see the largest export market for India for mobile devices? Is it the Africa, or the Europe, Asia, or everywhere?
See, I think it'll go if you see what Apple has done just now, right? They've started exporting a large quantities of iPhones from India now, right?
Yeah.
Manufacturing is happening out of India. So it's not really about, because now all these companies who are manufacturing in India will start manufacturing in China, will start manufacturing in India now. So therefore I think it'll be across the globe. What I'm saying that in this lower segment, where nobody is focusing much because economically weaker population, who will need innovative solutions, which nobody is practically working on today, although Google and others are trying to do something, but it's not really a perfect solution that we are able to provide. But India can lead that. India can champion that cause, so to say. That's the opportunity that I see. For a company like us, let me tell you, now I see that as an opportunity for us that we can be the champions of that. And if the government of India is also helpful, then we can go exports, we can do a lot of other things in other countries as well.
Perfect. Last question from my side. And we've been reading a lot about the semiconductor crisis, and especially with Russia and Ukraine, the most topical thing, it's impacting the global supply chain, especially on, for semiconductors, which almost cuts across all electronics. How acute is that problem currently for us?
That's very confusing, honestly speaking, because sometimes you get a news that no, it's going to be okay. Sometimes you say no, it's going to last longer. I think these newer events have actually were unforeseen newer events. So like this Russia war was completely unforeseen for us, and that's leading to another set of problems. But I would say broadly, we are in a better place than we were a year before. Okay. Despite Russia-Ukraine war, we're in a better place, but not really come out of it. We're not out of the woods yet, but we can see it's getting better, not getting as crunch situation as it was. I think you had roughly a stable 7-8 months for production, so therefore you've been able to produce and fulfill some of the demand. And now
what percentage of the bill of material for a handset, let's say we are still dependent on global supply chain, China, Taiwan, and others. Roughly, what percentage of that BOM will be?
Localization is about 30-35% today.
Okay.
And we are still importing about 65% from outside.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. So these were some topical points and questions around the theme of how mobile devices can drive the vision of $1 trillion digital economy. I would open the questions for the audience here. If anybody has any question, you can please raise your hands. You can ask whether you have a question to me or to Sunil, and we will be happy to answer. Yes.
Yes, sir. I have a question for Sunil. What is Lava doing right now? Like nowadays, what are their processes or programs for beating the market of mobile markets in future or in upcoming?
Yeah, so I think if you know that we are the number one, number two in the feature phone segment, which is a very, very large segment still. So about 8 million phones are made every month, get sold every month. So 8 million phones, which is practically about 30-40% of the total phones that get sold in India. That's one very big business for us. And then on the smartphone side, I don't know whether you follow us, so we've just started working on the Design in India program as far as the smartphone design is concerned. In fact, we are the only company in the world to be designing in India 100%. So if at all there's any design skill available, 100% design skill available in India with any company, it's with us. In fact, we came out with our first 5G smartphone in January, which was called Agni. So we are focusing a lot on design right now, and we also, if you would know, that we were the early ones to start manufacturing in India. So we're the first ones to actually start manufacturing in India. And we are working on aggressive portfolio as far as smartphone is concerned, because feature phones we are very strong. But when this shift from feature phone to smartphone happens, we are quite, like I was saying, bottom of the pyramid guys. So we have a lot of knowledge about them, and we know exactly what they would look for in a smartphone, and that's what we are actually working on. And then of course 5G is going to be a significant part of our strategy when it comes to smartphones.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes. We have one question there. Maybe last question from the gentleman there. Yeah.
Hey Sunil, so my question is from you. I have read somewhere that a few years back India tried to start its semiconductor industry, but it wasn't so successful. So what changes the scenario this time that this 10 billion incentive from the PLI schemes might be successful?
Question is, semiconductor India tried 2 years back also, but that did not fly off. So what is different this time that it will fly?
No, I think one of the keys, because semiconductor is a very important component in the phone, right? In fact, the most important, I would say. So I think because of this disruption in the last couple of years, the world has realized that dependence on one country for entire supply is a risky proposition to have. Therefore, people are like kind of spreading the risk in different parts of the world. And that's why India has got that opportunity, plus also geopolitical issues wherein there are security concerns that a lot of companies have around when they work in China versus what we do it in India. So I think that has opened up a much bigger opportunity than it was, because actually pandemic has been to a large extent responsible for this new thinking about making it successful.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us. Sunil, thank you. I hope the discussion was maybe a little bit dynamic, but good to see people not dozing off. So probably, we kind of served it well. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Before we close this session, I would request our moderator, Alekh Tiwari, who is a partner in KPMG, to give a memento to our speaker, Mr. Sunil Raina, who is the President, Lava International. And on behalf of Exhibitions India, may we present a memento to our moderator, Alekh Tiwari. Anybody from Exhibitions India? Yes, Mr. Raina did the honors for us. Thank you so much.